Have you ever wondered how being single for a long time can change you? Whether by choice or circumstance, going years without a romantic relationship affects people in ways they may not even realize. Some of these changes are empowering, helping you grow stronger and more independent. But others, they can make it harder to connect with someone new, even when the opportunity arises. In this video, we're going to explore 5 key ways that long-term singlehood reshapes you mentally, emotionally, and socially. From how you handle independence to how you approach relationships, these shifts happen gradually, often without you noticing. But once you understand them, you can decide what's working in your favor and what might be holding you back. And be sure to stay until the very end, because some of these changes might surprise you. More importantly, we'll discuss what you can do to embrace the positive aspects while overcoming the ones that might be limiting your ability to form deep connections. Whether you're content with being single or considering opening up to love again, this video is for you. Now let's get started. Number 1, become more independent. The longer you've been without a relationship, the more self-sufficient you become. You get used to making decisions on your own, structuring your life exactly the way you want, and handling challenges without leaning on a partner for emotional or practical support. And in many ways, this is a good thing. Independence gives you strength, confidence, and the ability to stand on your own 2 feet, without relying on someone else to complete you. But there's another side to it, one that can make relationships harder when they do come along. Think about it. When you're used to living life entirely on your own terms, bringing someone else into the picture can feel like an adjustment, even an inconvenience. You have your own routines, your own habits, your own way of doing things. There's nobody to check in with, nobody to consult when making plans, nobody to compromise with when deciding how to spend your day. And over time, that can create a mindset where relationships feel more like an obligation than a partnership. This isn't to say independence is a bad thing. In fact, it's one of the most attractive qualities a person can have. But there's a difference between being independent and being so set in your ways that you can't make space for another person. Relationships require a certain level of flexibility, a willingness to adjust, to accommodate, to compromise. If you've been single for years, you might not even realize how much you've gotten. Here's to not having to do that. Imagine 2 people in their 60s who've both been single for a long time. One still remains open to companionship, willing to adjust aspects of their life to welcome someone in. The other has become so accustomed to their routines that the idea of sharing space, time, or decisions with someone else feels frustrating. Which one do you think would find it easier to build a connection? If the right person came along? The good news, if you recognize this in yourself, it's not something that has to hold you back. Being independent doesn't mean being closed off. It means you have the ability to choose what's right for you. But if part of you still wants companionship, it's important to remember that relationships thrive on give and take. Maintaining your independence while still allowing space for someone else is the key to finding balance. And when you find that balance, you don't lose yourself in a relationship. You simply grow alongside it. Number 2, struggle more with emotional vulnerability. The longer you go without a romantic relationship, the harder it can become to open up emotionally. When you're single for years, you get used to handling things on your own. Your thoughts, your emotions, your struggles. You don't have someone regularly asking how you're feeling, checking in on your day, or providing that deep level of emotional support that relationships often bring. And over time, you may start to build walls without even realizing it. Emotional vulnerability is a skill, and like any skill, it requires practice. In a relationship, you naturally learn to express your feelings, to share your worries, to lean on someone when things get difficult. But when you've been alone for a long time, that muscle weakens. You might find it uncomfortable to let someone see the softer, more unguarded side of you. You might hesitate to admit when you need help, or struggle to say things like "I miss you" or "I need you." And in some cases, you might even convince yourself that you don't need that kind of connection at all. But the truth is, no matter how independent you are, deep down, everyone craves emotional intimacy. The challenge is that when you've been alone for a long time, letting someone in can feel foreign, almost unnatural. And if you're not careful, that hesitation can make it harder for relationships to develop, even when you meet someone who could be a great match. Imagine 2 people, both single for years. One is open to connection, willing to share their thoughts and feelings, even if it feels a little uncomfortable at first. The other has grown so accustomed to keeping everything to themselves. that they struggle to express even the simplest emotions. Which one do you think will have an easier time forming a meaningful relationship? This isn't about forcing yourself to be emotionally open with just anyone. It's about recognizing that if you want deeper connections, you have to be willing to take emotional risks. Being vulnerable isn't a weakness. It's what allows people to truly know you, to understand you, to connect with you on a level that goes beyond casual conversation. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Number 3, develop stronger personal routines and habits. When you've been single for a long time, you naturally build a life that revolves entirely around your own preferences, routines, and habits. And while there's a certain freedom in that, it can also make it harder to integrate someone else into your world. The longer you've lived without having to adjust for a partner, the more set in your ways you become, and that can create challenges when a relationship opportunity arises. Think about it. When you're in a relationship, there's a natural give and take. You compromise on plans, adjust routines to fit another person's needs, and learn to create a shared lifestyle. But when you've been alone for years, you don't have to think about anyone else's schedule. You eat what you want, sleep when you want, watch what you want on TV, and structure your day exactly how you like it. Over time, this can make you less flexible, even if you don't realize it. This is especially noticeable when it comes to daily habits. You get used to certain ways of doing things, how you organize your home, what time you wake up, how you spend your evenings. And the idea of someone coming in and changing any of that, it can feel disruptive. Some people even begin to view relationships as more of a sacrifice than a gain, simply because they don't want to alter the life they've built for themselves. Now, this doesn't mean you should abandon your routines or change who you are. In fact, having a strong sense of self is one of the best things about being single for a long time. But relationships require a certain level of adaptability. If you're unwilling to adjust even slightly, it can create distance before a connection has the chance to grow. Imagine 2 people, both single for years. One has built strong personal routines, but remains open to adjusting if the right person comes along. The other is so set in their ways that even small compromises feel like a burden. Which one do you think will have an easier time maintaining a relationship? The key is balance, keeping the structure you enjoy, while also allowing room for someone else when the time is right. Because at the end of the day, the habits you've built over the years should enhance your life, not create barriers that keep people out. And when you can find that balance, you don't lose your independence, you just make space for something more. Number 4, raise your standards sometimes too high. The longer you've been single, the more selective you become about who you're willing to let into your life. And in many ways, this is a good thing. When you've spent years on your own, you learn exactly what you want, what you don't want, and what you're not willing to tolerate in a relationship. You've had time to reflect on past experiences, to understand your personal boundaries, and to develop a stronger sense of what truly matters to you. But there's a flip side sometimes. Those standards can become so high that they start keeping people out. Instead of letting the right one in, think about it. When you're young, relationships often come with a sense of discovery. You're more open to exploring connections, learning from each other, and figuring things out along the way. But when you've been single for a long time, you might expect someone to fit perfectly into your life right from the start. You might become less patient with flaws, less willing to navigate differences, and more likely to dismiss someone over small imperfections. Over time, this can lead to a cycle where nobody ever seems good enough. And it's not just about expectations for a partner, it's also about expectations for love itself. If you've been single for years, you might have built up an idealized version of what a relationship should look like. Maybe you expect the perfect emotional connection, effortless communication, or the kind of chemistry that feels straight out of a movie. But real relationships take work. They require patience, compromise, and a willingness to embrace someone's imperfections, just as you'd want them to embrace yours. Now, raising your standards isn't a bad thing. In fact, knowing your worth and refusing to settle for the wrong person is one of the best things about spending time alone. But the key is recognizing the difference between having high standards and having unrealistic ones. If your list of requirements is so rigid that no one could possibly meet them, you might be unconsciously closing yourself off to potential connections. Imagine two people both single for years. One has clear standards but understands that relationships involve growth and compromise. The other is constantly searching for someone who checks every box, never giving anyone a real chance. Which one do you think is more likely to find a meaningful connection? The truth is, relationships aren't about finding someone perfect. They're about finding someone whose imperfections you can accept and whose presence makes your life better. If you've been single for a long time and struggle to find a good match, it might be worth asking yourself, am I looking for a real connection, or am I chasing an ideal that doesn't exist? Because sometimes the right person isn't the one who meets every expectation. It's the one who brings something real, something lasting, and something that reminds you why love is worth the risk. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Number 5, feel less pressure to be in a relationship. As time goes on, you may find that the urgency to be in a relationship begins to fade. When you've been single for a long time, you learn how to be content on your own. You fill your life with routines, hobbies, friendships, and personal goals, and in many ways that can be incredibly fulfilling. Unlike when you were younger, when there was social pressure to pair up, settle down, and follow the traditional relationship path, you start to realize that you don't need a romantic partner to live a happy, meaningful life. And while that's a sign of personal growth, it can also create a mindset where you become indifferent to relationships altogether. Over time, this shift in perspective can make it harder to step back into the dating world. When you're used to your independence, the idea of adding someone into your life might feel unnecessary, even disruptive. You may start thinking, why go through the effort of dating when I'm perfectly fine on my own? And in some cases, that feeling of comfort can turn into avoidance. You might convince yourself that relationships aren't worth the trouble, not because you truly don't want one, but because the idea of change feels overwhelming. This doesn't mean that choosing to remain single is a bad thing. If you genuinely prefer it and feel at peace with that choice, then there's nothing wrong with embracing it. But if you still find yourself wanting companionship, yet avoiding opportunities to connect, it may be worth asking yourself if you've built emotional walls without realizing it. Imagine two people, both single for many years. One has accepted their independence, but remains open to the possibility of love if the right person comes along. The other has become so comfortable in their solitude that they no longer put in any effort to meet people, even when they secretly crave connection. Which one do you think has a better chance of experiencing companionship when the opportunity arises? The key is recognizing the difference between genuine contentment and passive avoidance. Being comfortable alone is a strength, but letting that comfort turn into isolation can be a missed opportunity. If you've been single for a long time, take a moment to ask yourself, am I truly happy this way? Or have I simply convinced myself that I am because it's easier than taking a risk? Because the truth is, relationships aren't about filling a void. They're about enhancing the life you've already built. And if you keep your heart open, you never know what incredible connections might still be ahead of you. Final thoughts. As we wrap up this video, take a moment to reflect on these 5 changes. Do any of them sound familiar? If you've been single for a long time, you've probably experienced at least some of these shifts. And while many of them can be positive, helping you grow stronger, wiser, and more self-sufficient, it's also important to recognize when they might be holding you back. Being single is not a flaw, and it's not something that needs to be fixed. In fact, some of the happiest people are those who have learned how to enjoy their own company. But if deep down you still desire companionship, it's worth asking yourself, have I unconsciously built walls that keep people out? Have I become so set in my ways that I no longer make space for someone else? Have I let past experiences or high expectations stop me from giving new connections a real chance? The good news is, it's never too late to make small changes that open the door to love and connection. Whether it's staying flexible, practicing emotional vulnerability, or simply being willing to step outside your comfort zone, every effort you make brings you closer to the kind of relationship you want, if you want one at all. And the best part? None of these changes require you to lose yourself. The right relationship will never take away your independence. It will simply add to the life you've already built. So if you've been single for years and wondering why love hasn't found you yet, Remember this. It's not about whether or not you're still relationship material. It's about whether you're still open to the possibility of connection, growth, and companionship. And when you are, love has a way of finding you, even when you least expect it. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.